George Carlin had a joke about that back in the 80s. He was like, if you want to stop the drug trade, he said, don't put drug dealers in jail. They're fine with going to jail. Go after the bankers who are financing it all. Send them to jail. Watch how fast they start. Carlin was brilliant.
I'm Flindt Andersen, founder of Pain, Parents and Addicts in Need. I've been in recovery since 2001, and there isn't much I don't know about recovery. And my mission is to constantly tell the truth about addiction, to make the realities of addiction, recovery, and drug culture known, and to drive awareness and advocate change that ultimately saves lives.
And I'm Jason LaChance, a certified recovery coach with a passion for speaking with others and sharing their knowledge to help others seek recovery and maintain long-term sobriety. And this is the Don't Hide the Scars podcast, presented by Pain, Parents and Addicts in Need. Welcome to the Don't Hide the Scars podcast. And on this episode, we are going to highlight some of the laughs that we've had. Don't Hide the Scars tends to be about very serious subject matter, but it doesn't mean that Pain founder Flindt Andersen, myself, Jason LaChance, and our guests have not had a lot of laughs along the way, including stand-up comedian Alonzo Bodden, brother of Chris Farley, Tom Farley, a friend and a mentor of mine, Adam Jablin, a gentleman who's about to make his debut as one of the interventionists on the TV show A&E's Intervention, Mike Diamond, and our buddy from the Begin Again podcast, Gary Menkes. These are various highlights from those podcasts. Highly recommend you go listen to the full episodes if you've not. If you have yet to hit that subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening on, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, please do so. And of course, if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, turn the bell on for full alerts, leave a thumb up on the video and a comment in the section below. Enjoy this episode of Pains Don't Hide the Scars. Alonzo Bodden, been making people laugh around the country for over 20 years. Thank you for joining myself, Jason LaChance, and Flindt Andersen, the founder of Parents and Addicts in Need.
How you doing? Good to be here. And thanks for listening and for laughing and all that good stuff. Let's jump in. What do you want to know? How can I solve all your problems?
Well, I being a fan of yours, Last Comic Standing, season 3 winner, that's really when I got to know your career. And for the longest time, I didn't know you were in recovery. So I'm curious what life looked like for you just before you decided, hey, I need help.
Well, one reason you don't know is I totally mistimed my rehab. I got sober 5 years before I started doing comedy, which, as you know, in showbiz, you don't want to go to rehab until you're well established and people actually care. TMZ has no interest in my story. I was an airplane mechanic. I was working at Lockheed, and I always tell people I'm a child of the 80s. I was on the 80s schedule. Started doing cocaine in 1980 when it was not addicting. It was just fun.
Right.
And that progressed into crack, and ultimately I bottomed. My sobriety date's March 15th of 88.
Nice.
It was crack that did me in. We joked about it back then, but one good thing about crack is it gets you to recovery quick. There's no old crackheads, I was smoking crack for 27 years. No, you won't hear that. It's a quick one. But
yeah, that's funny you bring that up. I had a conversation with Charlie Sheen, and it was about somebody needing some help. And he said, just tell them to smoke crack or freebase that shit. They'll get there real quick.
Oh, yeah, in no time. And, if you smoke crack, you'll make it with your teeth. If you smoke meth, you'll make it without your teeth. That's pretty much the choice.
That's the choice. That is the choice.
All joking aside, it was, it was a bottom. I mean, it was ultimately for me, it was going to jail. I got busted, and I had never been busted. I'd been incredibly lucky. And I had been in rehab once working at Lockheed. They had like the employee assistance program, and I wasn't there to get sober. I was there to keep a job. And I'll never forget that night getting arrested, because when they put the handcuffs on, I remembered the word powerless, and I suddenly knew exactly what it was.
Boy, yeah, we all get to that point, don't we? Where that the power that we think we had, long gone, absolutely long gone.
Yeah, I was recently talking to someone about this, someone not in recovery, and I was telling them that I think we all have a line somewhere. And my thing was, I never wanted going to jail to be normal. I know people to whom jail was, that's where I'm spending the weekend. I'm going away for a few months or a couple of years or whatever. I never wanted that to happen. That, to me, that is that was the line I didn't want to cross.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's a terrible, uncomfortable play. When you're talking about, I was having a flashback to the, put your hands behind your back and.
Yeah, not fun at all. It's interesting, Alonzo, that you bring up that line. I talk about that quite a bit. We all have that line that at some point in our addiction, we're going to cross it. We're just bound to cross that line. And there have been people that have gotten, well, if you want to call it lucky, they didn't get arrested. I was one of those guys. I had a 20+ year addiction to opiates, and I mean heavy, and I never got arrested. I actually got taken downtown for forging prescriptions. I had the DEA show up at my door. That's quite the experience when your wife answers the door and says, "Yeah, he's in the back. Go get him." But literally take me downtown, sitting there. And to this day, I still don't know how I got out of it. I called my lawyer. My lawyer came in and we walked out of there. Unbelievable. Maybe if I was arrested at that time, again, I don't have a crystal ball, but maybe that would have been a turning point for me. I don't know. I can't answer that question. It is a turning point for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. George Carlin had a joke about that back in the 80s. He was like, if you want to stop the drug trade, he said, don't put drug dealers in jail. They're fine with going to jail. Go after the bankers who are financing it all. Send them to jail. Watch how fast they start. Carlin was brilliant.
Were you going to say something else?
Something stupid.
Yes,
always. Yes.
Yes, right. Improv. Yes. That's the first rule of improv. Yes, and
the beautiful thing is now that I'm in recovery, I have that stop button when people ask me. Before they'd say, "Well, you want to repeat that?" I'm like, "Yes, I would like to repeat that." Now I'm like, "Nope,
no, yep,
that one got away on me. Sorry."
Tom Farley, author of the Chris Farley Show, recovery advocate. Welcome to Don't Hide the Scars course with Flindt Andersen, founder of Parents and Addicts in Need, and myself, Jason LaChance. Good to see you again, Tom.
Absolutely. Good to be seen. Good to be here. Yeah. Really
great to have you, Tom.
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's dive right in. We were talking before we hit record about the importance of connectivity. And I know that you and I have talked a lot about that. And I think we're all in agreement that the opposite of addiction isn't necessarily recovery. It's connectivity.
Mm-hmm. So true.
So true.
And you're getting back out there doing a lot more speaking and advocacy. What really are you finding through all this process now that we can actually commingle?
First of all, I get to connect with people and be out there, but it's, COVID, it's like comics that are always looking for great material. Like COVID provided so much material. This is perfect. Right. And like one of the first things I say to people is like, people like all of a sudden for the first time in who knows how long people around the world suddenly felt what it's like to be isolated and disconnected.
Yeah.
And what I talk about all the time is like, and they hated it. Like 18 months and they're starting fights in Walmart and getting kicked off of planes. They're like, they couldn't handle it for 18 months. And my point to them is like, have been people and are people in our society, in our communities, sometimes even in our families that have felt that disconnection and isolation every day of their life.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You felt it for 18 months, 2 years, and you couldn't handle it. So it really gives perspective, and it gives us an opportunity to reconnect and the importance of connection as we say, particularly when we're talking about addiction is a disease of isolation. And the next step there from there is that healing can't occur in isolation either.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
So
Yeah, no, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, I'm walking around the other day and I'm still seeing kids in masks, and nothing bothers me more than to see a 6-year-old, 7-year-old walking around with a mask on. We're finding so many issues these days that not only are these kids not connecting with somebody by wearing that mask, they're being told not to.
yeah.
And that's frightening.
Yeah. Well, and we read so much of communication is nonverbal, and we put that thing over our face, let alone you throw a hat on. We got it. Why do you think the fucking ninjas wore just this,
Right.
And now here you go. The way that I don't want to get too off into it, but the way that it was handled, we're going to see ramifications down the line.
Yes.
And there's like no liability for it.
Right.
At all. And it's a little frightening to me. I worry about that with my kids as well. So I'm glad you brought that up.
You bet. And then it's a wonder why, you've got some of these kids that are turning to substances to mask their issues. I mean, I hate to use that term, but that's what they're doing, Now you're just creating, again, it's just a creation of more and more issues that these kids are going to find a difficult time getting out of. That's at some point. And hopefully they don't walk through my doors, but they could be.
Right. And at best back before COVID, they may or may not have, but usually were able to at least rely on their parents or teachers for help. But now parents and teachers got thrown into the bucket too. They're just as in need of that as well. And so now all of those support structures have been kind of like, just really fractured. So we can't just rely on, well, that's the parents, role, or the teachers have to do that. No, we all do. We totally all do.
Yeah. Well, now, I mean, you're doing so much advocacy work and, of course, working in the field of addiction recovery. What are you finding most when you're going out and speaking? I mean, I know you speak at schools and.
Yeah. Well, what I love about how my approach to it, and why it's so really good. No, it's because from the start. I mean, I couldn't have gone into this. Even when I started the Chris Farley Foundation. If I'm using and way back then I did solely use Chris as kind of my my brand. How I had to use incorporate at least humor. And I watched all my brothers really connect with their audience through their gift of humor. So I'm like, okay, if I can just apply this to this very serious subject matter, not only, will I get people's attention and connect to my audience if I do it correctly and appropriately, but I'm also adding back into a lot of people's worlds, some joy and laughter that they probably thought was gone forever.
Sure.
And so I love that that's my space, and even clinicians. I was speaking a couple of weeks ago to a bunch of healthcare executives in Colorado. And so you had not just the clinicians, but you had the accounting people and the administrative people. And I was talking this whole thing about connection. And they had been at a whole weekend conference listening to speech after speech and PowerPoint after PowerPoint. And I got up there at the end and I was doing my motivational stuff. And then I said, let me demonstrate to you what I'm talking about here, the power of improv. And I'm like, 5 people, let's go. And all of these doctors, the clinicians, like, what? And I brought them up on stage and I put them through this improv drill that took them totally out of their comfort zone and really showed them, what it's like to connect and be accepted and trusting and all those things that we look for, but it's so hard for us to go there. And I'm like, this is what, a trusting, good ensemble looks like. And they were like, wow, it was amazing.
New Perceptions North, the premier drug and alcohol treatment and recovery center in Central California. A full continuum of medically supervised top quality care with programs for detox and patient residential treatment with dual diagnosis, intensive outpatient treatment, sober living support groups, and more. New Perceptions North provides adult men and women with the highest caliber of professional health care, treating each client with compassion and respect in a safe, comfortable environment to begin the process of recovery to proudly create and sustain a life without addiction. Call 559-978-1507 or visit newperceptionsnorth.com. Adam Jablin, thank you for joining, founder of Parents and Addicts in Need. Flindt, Andersen, myself on Don't Hide the Scars.
And you're?
Oh, I'm Jason LaChance.
There we go. Okay.
Sorry. Forgot
And
myself.
And you are?
Flindt Andersen.
Flindt Andersen.
And you are?
I'm Adam Jablin.
There we go. We
And
got
welcome to Don't Hide the Scar.
it. That's the best intro we've ever had right there.
We'll switch roles today.
Guys, thank you for having me on. Honestly, I do love your show. Jason, you know, I follow you guys for quite a bit, so it's an honor to be on.
I can just speak for me, but I know the rest of us have that guilt, all right, for all of our using and drinking and damage and chaos and bullshit that we caused, you know, over the years. And to even have the thought of starting a boundary, especially with like your wife, okay, is like, God, do I even do this? I mean, I felt like I didn't even have that right to put up boundaries with anybody, let alone my wife.
It's so challenging because, first off, I'll speak for myself, but I heard you say it. Like we feel like we were just so low, and what we did, and the lying, and the manipulating it, right? And now we start to get healthy and realize, oh, okay. Well, a lot of the things I was doing is because I don't have the courage to say no. So what I'm doing is I'm people pleasing, and I'm putting on a fake mask. And then when you're not in the room, I hate the way I feel. So right, and it's just really tough to find your balls in the beginning. But I think if you have the right mentor and you have
mine were in my wife's purse, by the way.
Mine could fit the thimble.
Yeah. So it's very funny because mine was in my wife's top drawer. It's an interesting thing in how when we have to get healthy, we realize all of the character values that we were lacking. Mm-hmm. Just like by even being able to say no, like really, we all were able to just say no, thank you. Why would we even need a boundary? Right? Because you're so healthy and you're in such integrity, and you don't need to build a boundary because you communicate so beautifully to people. There's no need. But I was somebody that wanted to say the right thing at the right time, wanted to make you feel happy at my expense, and that story goes on and on. And drinking and popping pills really seemed to heal that.
Absolutely. My people pleasing, though, this is kind of weird. Maybe you guys will get it. Was more towards for people outside of my family. I could have, or I did. It's not that I put up boundaries with my family. I was still in those early days. Well, I can still be an but I really was kind of an asshole during those early days of recovery. But for somebody outside that family, my God, I wanted to people please. And even to this day, I have a tendency to people please more in business and people that I'm not even that close with. I think we all want that feeling to be liked, and somehow, I mean, that's still some stuff I got to get past.
Well, so for me, I like using common language, but when you may be like this, and Jason, you may be like this too, because sometimes I need somebody older and wiser than me to break things down. And the three of us may actually totally agree on this. I really wasn't a people pleaser by the definition that other people not us in recovery would use outside. As in, I like the Yankees. If you said you like the Cubs, I'm not going to go, I like the Cubs, right? Like, I'm not going to, right? But I did have a Superman complex, which when I felt like I had to be there and save the day and be there for everybody and always create harmony. Like, that was my job. I somehow had to get Trump and Obama to agree. Like, all of this, right? And especially that feeling outside of the family, right? Like, just overextending yourself, trying to make everything harmonious. But I wasn't a people pleaser to the point that if you said you like pickles, I don't like pickles, I'm just going to lie to you because I want to be liked. Right. And I had to redefine all of these. First I need the common language, which is people pleaser. And then I had to go look even deeper. Like, what was that? And it wasn't that. I think I just constantly wanted harmony. I just didn't want confrontation, and it doesn't exist. Sometimes you have to deal with confrontation, and you have to deal with differences of opinion, and you have to know how to control your emotions and difference of opinions. And guys, I didn't have the equipment, until I got sober. Like, I just wasn't downloaded with that stuff.
Right. Well, even today, I as much as you may think differently, I don't like confrontation. I mean, I'm good. I'm good at starting it. Okay. But if it's coming back at me, then I'm not that big of a fan, because I think I always have to just one up somebody, and I have to get louder, and my voice gets louder and louder and louder until it's like I'm sitting there going, what are you doing?
So you're good. So what you're saying is I'm good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get that all the time. And again, especially doing business on a daily basis with some of the challenges that we all have, in doing business. Sometimes you have to be confrontational. It's how you do it. It's all about how you do it, though.
It's how you do it. It's healthy to have a difference of opinions. It's healthy to be able to see from another's point of view. And it's healthy just to be able to grow. I mean, if the three of us all just like the same thing, want to do the same thing, like the same movies, like life would be really boring. As a matter of fact, nobody would listen to the show. Like, it'd be like, what's the point? But I'd like to say for myself in recovery, I just didn't know how to communicate in a way that was healthy.
Right. So
when confrontation came, it was win at all costs.
Mm-hmm.
That's not healthy.
Flindt Andersen, we welcome a renowned interventionalist, author. I love his latest book, A Dose of Positivity. And, I'm going to sit back a lot during this. A gentleman told me he learned from his acting teacher, one of the best things you can do is understand you have one mouth, two eyes, and two ears. So I'm going to sit back a little bit. Mike Diamond, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to have a conversation with people that get it. I've been dealing with crazy people. Seriously.
That's perfect.
Well,
True.
I've not had an opportunity to sit and talk with two gentlemen that do interventions at the same time. And we've not really talked much about it here on the podcast. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about interventions. I think there's some people irresponsible. Like I was telling you, Mike, and I think I told you, Flindt, I had someone that was like, hey, can you do this? And I'm like, no, I've never done it. I've never been to one other than my own father's. Like, no, that would be so irresponsible for me to be like, yeah, I got this. No.
Yeah. Yeah. So Mike, I'm curious, cause I'm a little different and no matter what I do, okay, as it relates to this, because when I start out doing an intervention, I want to get in and out of there as quickly as possible. I want to get that person out. Okay. I don't need people writing letters going, we love you. And you've done this. Fuck. Everybody knows what we've done. You know what I'm saying? So again, just give me a little taste of what you do when you start one of these things.
It's so great you said that, because when I first started doing it, the person that I was working with, who was supposed to be mentoring me, did the letter thing, the Johnson approach. I studied the Johnson approach, and she was completely horrific. And she would be reading a letter, and I'm like, first of all, who wrote this letter? Because I wouldn't, I was supposed to be shutting my mouth, right? And she had no idea how to build rapport. And she was just talked down to people because she was well educated. And I was like, this person's not going to treatment. They're going to bail. So they would bail. And then I would take the next approach, which would be sit down with them kindly and get to know them, meet them where they're at, and be really specific of what they were doing, and say, look, you're making disempowering choices. Like, this is not working. Whatever you want to do, I have a solution. Maybe you should try this. And what happened is she was constantly failing, and I was actually doing the interventions. So I was like, I might as well do this myself. So the first interventions I would get would be, people would be like, we want to get together and we want to read letters. And I would be like, no problem. And I've been successful doing it. Like, I've been successful making it loving, making it like bringing in the right people. But a lot of the interventions I've had to do were like, find this person, do this, do that. And I get a bit of information, which could be Jason. I'm like, give me two or three things he likes.
Yeah.
He likes baseball. Like, great. That's all I need. I'll go find him.
Yeah.
And then I would just do the one-on-one executive style and sit with them, and then just get into their little micro world and figure out where the pain was, where the trauma was, identify with it, and then present a better opportunity. And that's all I tell people. I don't tell them how long they're going to go in for, because no addict wants to think 60, 90 days. I don't tell them how long they're going to stop for. I'm just like, look, you're homeless or you're in a crack house.
Right.
And if you don't think that's rock bottom, it ain't going to get better. So why don't you try something I can suggest, right? And we'll go from there day by day. And every person that I've done it that way, and the key is, once I get them in, I communicate with them every day. I know they're going to detox and want out. Why would you want to detox? I have spent days, and I mean days, with people doing detoxes where I'm like, get a nurse, I'll detox them myself, because I know they want out, and I just spend time with them. So I've used the Johnson. On the show, we use the Johnson, right? Intervention. It works for me. But I just use whatever I have to try to make an empowering choice.
Whether it's the initial intervention or it's afterwards, we got to get the family out of the way here. Okay. Because I've noticed more times than not, it's the not every family member, but there are certain family members in each family that sabotage this damn thing.
1,000%. They don't want to see the person get well,
right?
And they're stuck in the disease. Right. And the worst thing is when the person gets well and then turns around and basically says, yeah, you know what? I've made an amends, but you got to get your shit together.
Right.
Right. I just had, look, this is the worst thing. I had a dear friend who, her significant other was just not right, and she finally left him, and she was like, I can't do this anymore, because he just wouldn't get sober, and he killed himself. And she ended up, he called her and she had to discover the body. And I said to her, look, you did the right thing, because you weren't willing to support his disease and addiction. You were supporting his recovery. And unfortunately, he didn't want to get well. It's horrible, but it's the truth.
Right.
And I've been around people that I've set up interventions, and I've done everything to the last moment. And then they're like, I can't do it. And I'm like, all right. You don't get this. This addiction is a family disease. And unless the person does like I do, I left my family. And I always say, if the blood is, they say blood's thicker than water, but if the blood is toxic, you got to get a blood transfusion.
Yep.
Get the
I agree.
And you know what I mean? And I'm like, nope, set the boundary, set a boundary, set a boundary, set a boundary. Nope. You know what I mean? Especially because they bring the trauma back and the stories and the bullshit. It's like, no.
Right, right. And then what I'll do is, again, if that person doesn't go, or this is what I always leave them with, is simply this. I go, I understand. I said, but you know that you can call me, and when you're ready, I will be there for you. And when you just make that simple little statement like that, it rings true with that person. Because how many times, I don't know about you, Mike, or you, Jay, but I had people doing interventions on me, and I didn't want any part of it. But man, when somebody said, hey, when you're ready, call me, I'll be there for you, that rang true with me. And I did.
Yeah. See, I walked into meetings because I was done. Like, I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. But I know for me, like what you said is like I said, look, once you get sober, you know a better way. End of story. So I don't like, it's like tell people, it's like, you can do that. You're going to keep feeling awful, or you can do this. It's hard, yeah, because we have vices, but you're going to be healthy and you're going to think clear and your life's going to be great. But hey, it's on you. I got plenty of people to help.
You bet.
I ain't going down the rabbit hole with you. If
Right.
you don't want to make empowering choices, don't make them. That's on you.
Yeah.
And everyone's rock bottom. Some people don't. Some people's rock bottom is death. We know that. I've watched
Yep.
people. They're like, "Are you kidding me, dude? You're burning alive." Yeah, but I can pull more gasoline on. Okay.
Right. It's like I say, there's always 10 more feet to dig. You know, rock bottom to me is death, right?
So true, right? It's so true. And some people just go down the rabbit hole. They just don't want to. They don't want to face the pain and work through it.
Exactly.
It sucks.
If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, please call PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, at 559-579-1551, or visit us online at painnonprofit.org. Follow us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Pain Nonprofit. And please subscribe to the Don't Hide the Scars podcast and share with others wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. And if you would like to donate to PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, please click the link in the description to make your tax-deductible donation today and help us save more lives gripped by addiction. Founder of PAIN, Flindt Andersen, and of course myself, Jason LaChance. We welcome the host of the Begin Again podcast, Gary Menkes, to the pod, to Don't Hide the Scars. What's going on, my friend?
My friend, it is a pleasure to be here. Flindt, it's good to be with you guys. I love what you're doing. I'm grateful to be here, sincerely.
Thanks, Gary. We're glad you're here, buddy. We really are.
For those just listening, make sure you look at the thumbnail photo because Gary's an example of what long-term recovery does. That's a silver fox right there.
That's
You know what I'm saying?
exactly right.
I'll take it. Like I tell my other buddies, hey, man, at least I got it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's gray, but I got some.
Heck yeah. You and I, we've kind of had some different talks and it was interesting after the last time we had any longer conversation. I had a couple people reach out about, recovery coaching and asking, and this word that keeps coming up, big hot topic button, authenticity. And working with people. And the best that I could come up with is authenticity is about getting complete. Like, we're pretty fractured people. And the reason that I want to start here, I mean, you and I both grew up in homes of addiction, and yet we still maintained relationships with our fathers after the fact. And a lot of people have asked me, like, why? I'm like, getting him out of my life wouldn't have completed my life. It wouldn't have closed that gap of the trauma and everything else.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, how do you kind of view it now? I mean, you're what, 17 years sober, 18?
17 years. Yeah. May 6th, 2006 is my sobriety date. And it's amazing to say, to be honest with you, still, I like to keep it like, I like to reflect, or maybe it's just happening to me, Jason, but I really, lately, I've been really going back to like where I was 17 plus years ago. And, just such a gift that I don't live that way anymore, but, if you're asking about authenticity, right, it's a really cool topic because when I was out there, I think I was anything but authentic. I was hiding. I was fearful of everything. I was, I would do things morally bad. I would do things that would get me in a lot of trouble. And, authenticity to me, as a questioning, like on the spot, I think it's just the deepest, most real, open version of myself for the world to see. And it's not, and sometimes it's difficult. It's not me trying to hope that Jason and Flindt are going to like what I'm going to say and that they're going to like me as much as I sincerely do want you guys to like what I do. It's just kind of how I am. Jason, you and I hit it off from the beginning, I kind of love you, man. I do already. We know each other for not long. And, but in all sincerity, I think that's what being authentic really to me is. It's just being totally real and, not trying to be something that the other person expects of me. It's just, this is me. And, this recover out loud, this term, I think we touched upon it last time we had spoke, is a fairly new term to me, recover out loud. And, I think I had mentioned, I went from like, no social media. I didn't really care for that, to like completely, as you guys can attest to, opening up in public about my battles, my scars, where I was, my story. And, that's authentic. And we do it. And I know you do it, Jason, because we do it with the hope of helping one person with this story today. And, to me, that's, if you and I sit down, or I sit down at a podcast or at a meeting, and there's a newcomer, whoever it may be, and we have want to sincerely help that newcomer that just walked in the door, like, that's as authentic and real and beautiful as we can get. I think that's a good day for everybody.
Yeah. I love what you just said. And I think one of the things that I try to get across, especially let's just start with the newcomer for a second. And we've had this conversation with a couple other people on the podcast before as well. I always revert back to, I got clean and sober in 2001. I didn't even start to think about doing what I'm doing now until 2008, and then started it in 2009. And I believe that, again, everybody's different. But, when you're in that first 6 months, that first year, and I see people posting all over the place that, I've got 5 months and 22 days and 16 hours and 3 minutes and 22 seconds. Okay. It's like, what I want to tell them is, great, but take that sign down, get off of social media, and work on your recovery until you have, and I don't know exactly what the time frame is, but until you have enough time under your belt where, if you screw up, and by the way, most of us are going to, you're not going to put yourself in a position of not ever coming back loudly and proud about your recovery. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. As you're saying that, Flindt, I'm thinking to myself, well, number one, I wasn't on social media, but if I was, and I was, I'm different. I'm a different cat. Maybe I'm maybe just a little older. I don't know what it may be, but, I think that's just looking at that. That's a difficult, that's a difficult road to be, and I see it too. We all see it all the time. Hey, I've been sober for 12 months. I'm ready to start helping the world and this and that, right, and be a coach and all this stuff. And, Jason, you and I talked about that again, kind of offline, some of the people that we see. And, I'm not judging anyone, but again, on the topic of authenticity, if someone asks me, how did you do it? Right. And this is what we're taught in the rooms is just to tell my story and how it worked for me, so, there's more ways to get this done. There's more ways to skin the cat, if you will. But if someone's going to ask me, I'm going to tell them how I got sober, and I got sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's, and I went there, I was in and out for 4 years, and I was never going to go back to that place again because, I had it all figured out. And maybe I'll have to stop drinking one day, but I'm definitely not coming back in this room. And I found myself in May, 12th, 2006, in a bad place in my apartment all alone. And I called Intergroup New York City, and I went to a meeting on the very next day, May 13th, 2006, and I haven't had a drink since. I was given the difference. I believe I was given the gift of surrender. Like, and you talk about like the time frame just now, Flindt, like what it is. I think it's different for all of us. Mine was long. Like, it took me so long to even realize that, even though going through the steps, like there's a, obviously there's a higher power, I mean, it's a huge component. It's actually probably practically 90% of the program, but I was just so like, tunnel vision is, I just didn't want to drink again. That's all I was there for. I didn't want to drink again. And I was terrified probably over a year that I was going to fall off. I was going to go back out again.
If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, please call PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, at 559 579-1551 or visit us online at painnonprofit.org. Follow us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Pain Nonprofit. And please subscribe to the Don't Hide the Scars podcast and share with others wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. And if you would like to donate to PAIN, Parents and Addicts in Need, please click the link in the description to make your tax-deductible donation today and help us save more lives gripped by addiction.